Welcome, my friends, to a new episode of Ways of Teacher Training. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the 3 Ps in designing input sessions. Now, let me talk about this. As teachers, we need frameworks when we build our lesson plans. And we have different frameworks. We have test, teach, test. We have text-based presentation. We have PPP, present, practice, produce. We have the receptive skills framework, the productive skills framework, and many, many more. And we even have, a whole playlist on Britishey YouTube channel called Frameworks. But what about teacher training? Do we have frameworks for input sessions? Well, actually, what we do have is what we call the 3 Ps that need to be covered in every input session. And input session designing, input session planning goes around these 3 Ps. Now, what do these 3 Ps stand for? They stand for the professional aspect, the personal aspect, and the practical aspect. And a good input session is an input session where these 3 aspects are met. Let me tell you how. Now, let's go and talk about each aspect one by one. For example, what's the practical aspect? This is a very important aspect of any input session plan. Because again, why do we train teachers? We don't train teachers, just to give them some information about theories. We don't train teachers just to check what they know. We train teachers because we want them to leave our input sessions with something that they can use in reality. And this is the practical aspect. And that practical aspect in reality can be achieved in 2 areas. The first area is the English classroom when you're teaching. Okay? It can be reflected in your teaching practice in reality, or in the teacher's room. Someone might say, Shadi, what do you mean by that? What I mean by that is that our job as teachers can be divided into so many tasks. Sometimes we mark assignments. Sometimes we plan lessons. Sometimes we go and teach. So we can consider all these practical tasks. So in your input session, if you want to train your teachers to mark assignments, then this is, the practical aspect. If you train them to plan their lessons, that's the practical aspect. If you train them to mark written tasks, that's the practical aspect. If you train them to manage their classes, that's the practical aspect. So mainly, it is when the teacher trainer in the input session starts telling the trainees something like, now your students, I'll be your teacher. Okay? And then he starts, delivering demos and showing them how things should be done. It's also when practical tasks are given to trainees in the input sessions, like here is an assignment, I want you to mark it now, and then they compare what they did together. Or when you ask them to plan a lesson, right there in your input session, we call this the practical aspect. Now, the practical aspect is a very important aspect of every input session. Why? Because it's why we train our people. It's why we train teachers. We train teachers for reality. We don't just train them up for dreams, right? So there has to be something that they take out of the input session and, and use it in reality. Now, the second aspect is the professional aspect. And the professional aspect is about the information you will give to those candidates, to those trainees as a teacher trainer. You know, because it's not enough just to show them something, but they don't understand the rationale behind it. You know what I mean? Like you show them, for example, some techniques, but you don't say why these techniques would work. You don't explain to them the theory behind this technique, the rationale why it would work. You don't provide them with the terminology related to these techniques. I mean, the professional aspect is a sign of a good quality input session. Okay? So the practical aspect, we show our trainees how things should be done. The professional aspect, we start giving information to our trainees. Now, let me give you an example. Okay? Right. You're trying to show your trainees how to teach speaking. Okay, and let's imagine this moment. You said to your trainees, now you will be students, I will be your teacher. And then you ran this wonderful activity where, you know, trainees talk together as if they were students, and then you started asking them to repeat, okay, this activity, but with different partners. Now, this is the practical aspect. Why it is the practical aspect? Because you gave them a real example of what you expect them to do in reality. Wonderful. But it's not enough, because they need to know about the rationale behind it. Okay? And this is when you say something like that, well, repetition is great for speaking, and it actually increases the level of accuracy. Let me tell you how. Because when students are speaking, their minds are doing two jobs, looking for ideas and structuring the language. But when you ask them to repeat the activity with a different partner, their minds will be doing one job, structuring the language. Why? Because they already have ideas from the previous activity. This means because their minds will be doing one job, which is structuring the language, that would lead to better accuracy. Now again, what I did now is called the professional aspect. Because now I'm telling my trainees about the reason behind, okay, the efficiency of this activity, which is something that is required in input session, because it's not enough for a trainer just to come in the input session, oh, let's do these activities, and then you show your trainees some activities, oh, lovely, jubbly, and that's it. No, that would be very shallow. Like you show them something, but you don't tell them why it works. No. And then we come to the personal aspect. Now, what is the personal aspect? We call it personal because it's actually about trainees. It's about their beliefs. It's about their knowledge. It's about how much they know. And it's very important. Someone might say, Shadi, why it's very important? Those trainees, they come to me so that I train them up. Why it is important to check what they know. It's very important because teachers are great. They do everything they can for the sake of their students. Even when they do something that wouldn't help their students, they do it with a good intention. Okay? Like, for example, those teachers who teach English in the first language and they speak in the first language all the time. They don't do it because they're evil. They don't do it because they want to deprive the students of being exposed to the target language. No, they think that we're doing this because students wouldn't understand if we speak to them in English, and we want them to understand. We want them to comprehend. So they do it with good intentions. So as trainers, if we don't change that belief, we're in trouble, because no matter what you do, they will not follow what you say because they still have their own, ideas and they believe in them. And that's why the personal aspect is so important, to check what your trainees believe in, what they know. And if you spot a mistake or a wrong belief, you need to change it. That is your job as a trainer. And here comes the personal aspect. Now, someone might say, Shadi, and how do we check the personal aspect? Let's go one more time to the example that I gave about, repeating activities, in speaking. And again, I said, you act as a teacher, your trainees act as the students, and then you do the activity with them. And then after that, you ask them to check together and talk together about the rationale behind the activity and whether they believe this was beneficial or not. So you will find some teachers saying, oh, I don't know what the reason behind this was, students did it once. Why do they need to do it again? It's not important, so you will listen to these ideas. Now, this is the personal aspect. You're giving your trainees an opportunity to think on their own, and you're checking their beliefs regarding what happened. And then after that, the professional aspect comes in, where you give them information about what happened, you provide them with theoretical background about what happened, and also you kind of, give them feedback, on their personal beliefs and personal opinions. Now, a wonderful input session would always have the 3 Ps, the professional aspect, the practical aspect, and the personal aspect. And this is something that you need, my friend, to focus on when you're designing your input session. So when you design an input session, you need to look carefully at this input session and say, did I cover the 3 Ps, the personal aspect, the professional aspect, and the personal aspect? And if there is one aspect missing, then you need to sit and look at your input session plan and fix things accordingly. Right. Now, in order to make this a practical video, I actually filmed one of my input sessions. And we're going to watch this input session now. It's actually, the focus in this input session is techniques for presenting language, where I show my trainees different techniques of how they should be presenting language. And while we are observing this input session together, I'll show you kind of, flags telling you that, hey, this is, the personal aspect now, this is the professional aspect. The reason why I would do this so that you can see this in reality and how it works, right? So let's go and watch this input session. In text-based presentation, we have a language clarification stage, which means that presenting language is part of every framework. And this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about techniques for presenting language. Okay, so that's the main aim of today's session. And I would cover in this session, 3 main techniques for presenting language: explanation, guided discovery, and self-directed discovery. So we're going to talk about these 3. Now again, this is important for the course, because on the course you are required to deliver language lessons where you need to clarify language. So we would like to see these techniques handled in a good way on the course. And also, after the course is over, this is very important on a daily basis, right? Because part of your teaching as an English teacher is to clarify grammar, vocabulary, you name it, right? Are we ready? Okay, so this is how I'm going to deliver this session. I'm going to start with 4 short demo lessons. In these 4 short demo lessons, I wouldn't say demo lesson, just the stage of presenting language. So I'm going to do it in how many different ways? 4 different ways, right? And I want you to act as if you were students. And at the same time, with the eye of a teacher, you see what I'm doing. And you try to compare the differences in presenting language in the 4 techniques I'm going to use. And in order to make this very clear to you, I will be clarifying the same language point in 4 different ways. Okay? Are we ready? Now let's start. Okay, right, look at this. Jacques used to travel a lot. Janet is used to traveling a lot. So, now, which one of them does not travel a lot anymore? Which one does not travel a lot anymore? Janet or Jacques? Jacques, yes. So Jacques doesn't travel a lot anymore. Now, who still travels a lot? Oh, yes. Janet still travels a lot. Okay? So, who traveled a lot in the past, but not now? Jacques. Okay. But what about Janet? Does she still travel? Yeah, wonderful. Right. Okay, good. So my friends, when we look at this sentence here, Jack used to travel a lot. Where is the subject? Jack is the subject, right? Okay. And where is the verb part? Used to travel, that's the verb part. Okay? Now, so we have used to, and then we have travel. What's the form of travel? Yeah, that's an infinitive, right? Okay, good. Now let's look at the second part. Where is the subject in the second sentence? Okay, good. And where is the verb part? Is used to traveling. So we've got this here. And traveling is, what's the form of this? Now, what is the difference between these two? Used to and? Yes. Right. So, my friends, when there is a verb to be here, I'm talking about a habit in the present or the past? Present. And when it's just used to, so I'm talking about a habit in the present or the past? Past. Wonderful. So what if I said, instead of Janet, what if I said I? What do I do? Exactly. So I am used to traveling, right? What if I said they? They are used to traveling. Right. Okay, good. And this is the first demo. Right? Good. Now let's move to demo number 2. So my friends, I have 2 expressions that we can use to express habits in English language, right? The first one is used to plus infinitive, and the second one is am, is, are plus used to plus verb plus ing. So used to, infinitive, and then am, is, are plus used to, verb ing. Now this one is used to express habits in the past, but this one is for habits in the past or in the present? In the present. So habits in the present. Now let me give you an example in this one. Okay, so we can say Jack used to travel a lot, and because I said used to, so this means that this is a habit in the past, right? So Jack does not travel a lot anymore. In this one, if I say Janet is used to traveling a lot. Now, as long as I'm using is here and then used to and then the verb plus ing, so this means that this is a habit in the present, right? And the structure is obvious, as you see. So used to is followed by infinitive, but when I say am, is, are, used to, it has to be verb plus ing. And this is another demo. Okay, good. Ready for the third one? Okay, righty then. My friends, I have here 8 multiple choice questions, okay? I want you to read every question carefully and choose the correct answer. Okay, dokie? Okay, my friends, now check in pairs. Compare your answers here, together, work together, and here. Have you checked together, work together? Okay, let's check together. So the first one, I go jogging every morning before I started my new job. What's the answer here? Yes, used to, good. Why? Because this is a habit in what? Yeah, very good. Now 2, she working late because of a job at the hospital. Is used to. Why? Is it a habit in the past or the present? That's the present, right? Okay. When I was a child, we live in the countryside. Yes, past one. Right, good. 4. Right, okay, good. Now, I have 5 questions for you, mainly focusing on structure. So here, it's choose the sentence that is grammatically correct. I'll do the first one with you. Okay. Let's look at the first one. Which of the 3 in number 1 is correct? I used to work in, I'm used to work, I'm used to working late on weekends. Which one? Exactly, right. Why? Yes, when it's a present habit, we have am, is, are, and then used to plus verb plus ing. Good, so do the rest. Okay, now check with your partner together. Work with Ghadir. You. Together. So what about number 2? Which one is correct? B, yes. What about 3? Which one is correct? Very good. What about 4? Okay, good. What about 5? Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So simply, when we talk about a habit in the past, what do we use? Plus. And what about habits in the present? Yeah, am, is, are, used to, and? Very good. And that's another demo. get ready for the coming one. The coming one is demo number 4, and it's the last one. Okay? So my friends, right, what we're going to talk about is actually used to versus am, is, are, plus used to, plus verb, plus ing. So I have here an article explaining the difference in usage between used to and am, is, are, plus used to, plus ing. I want you to read it, study it. It covers both meaning, okay, form as well, and some comments on pronunciation. Study it well, because you're going to have some questions on that later. Okay, thank you very much. And this is demo number 4. So how many demos are these? 4 demos, eh? Now what I want you to do now is time to think like teachers. Okay, your teacher's back. And I want you to think about these 4 demos. What's the difference between these demos, you know, I mean, how are they different from one another? Which one is your favorite and why? And then we're going to talk, right? So let's have 2 big groups. So Sakra, I want you to take that seat over there. So let's have the 4 of you together. Can you move to this seat, Sohaila? Right, and Ghadir, move your seat here. So the 4 of you, and move it a bit here, and the 4 of you. It's better for you so that you can face them. Yeah, I mean, what you need to do is you need to discuss the 4 demos I did. What is the difference between them? You know, which one is your favorite and why? Okay. The explanation, guided discovery, self-directed. But I don't care about terminology now. I care about, you know, what you saw and which one you prefer, and the differences you noticed. But don't care about the names now.
Discovery.
Yeah.
Only 3?
Well, yeah, the 3 terms. I did 4. Oh, you see that. Up to you. Done here? Good. What about you? Done here? Okay, so let's talk. Now let's remember the first demo when I put 2 sentences, right? One for Jack and one for Janet. And I started asking you questions about, you know, which one traveled in the past but doesn't travel now, and all these questions. So which technique is it? Yeah, it's more that this is, you know, so demo number 1 is more of guided discovery, right? Now, in demo number 2, this is when I started talking about used to versus am, is, are, plus used to, plus verb, plus ing, you know, and then I started telling you about the function and giving you examples after that. Which one is it? Oh yeah, okay, so demo number 2, that was explanation. In demo number 3, I gave you 2 sets of questions. The first set of questions focused on meaning, and the second set of questions focused on form. And then after you answered, I started discussing things with you. So where is that? Yeah, it's kind of, you know, fall in here. Okay? Like it's between guided discovery and kind of self-directed discovery. What about the last one? Number 4, what did I do in number 4? I did nothing at all, not even questions. I just gave you an article about, used to versus am, is, are, used to, and then you started reading on your own, doing everything on your own, and that's self-directed discovery. This means, my friends, that there are a lot of techniques for presenting language, and these techniques, fall on this line where we have explanation, guided discovery, and then self-directed discovery. So if we are talking about guidance, guidance is 100% where? Here. In explanation, you just tell. You say everything you have. So it's 100% guidance, right? Because the teacher is doing everything. But what about guided discovery? Yeah, it's kind of 50% guidance, right? Because, you ask, elicit from students, the students say, so it's kind of a dialogue between you and your students. Explanation is a sort of a monologue, okay? So you're just speaking, students are listening, but here you're getting the answers from students. Then, when we move to the self-directed discovery, what about guidance from the teacher? Yeah, here it's 0 guidance, nothing, okay? And this is, like the maximum level of self-directed discovery. Sometimes we can do things between guided discovery and self-directed discovery, like you can give questions to students so they work on their own, and then after that you give them feedback, which falls here. So there is some guidance somehow, okay, and also some independence from the side of the students, but they're not completely left on their own because you'll be given feedback on this. Now, our teaching can be in any form of this. What do we prefer on this course? What we would love to see? We would love to see guided discovery, or something that would go between guided discovery and, we don't want to see, we're not saying it's wrong, it's fine, but we don't want to see it. Why? Because on this course you're being assessed, okay? And we want to assess your teaching. And in complete self-directed discovery, there is nothing to assess. See what I mean? But again, is this doable? Can we do it in reality? Because that's a good question. Yes. Yeah?
I think with intermediate students, I see that I can do it 100% because students have prior knowledge that we can build on. So it can happen with high achievers.
Yeah, but look at what he said. He said it's doable with high. So, which also takes our attention to one of the disadvantages. What if we give, this to students, whether it's a video or an article, and we ask them to do that on their own, and then we discovered in a coming lesson that they didn't do it. So that's one of the downsides. But also, good things as, students who are so motivated and would love to be independent will like it. And self-directed discovery is used a lot on what we know today as flipped teaching. And quickly, what is flipped classrooms? Flipped classrooms is...
When students do everything on their own, I give them assignments to prepare for next time. So when they come here, they do that. I just supervise, I invite them, they present, I just for just feedback.
Yeah, sort of practice.
Yeah.
So actually, yes, I mean, you want to teach something, so you show them a link of a video to watch at home on their own. Or maybe a reference to read, part of it. And then they come the next time, and instead of you teaching, you're just answering their questions and giving them practice. And this is one of the forms of, self-directed discovery is actually used a lot in flipped teaching. Lovely. Okay, right. So, now back to this one more time. One of the features of explanation is that you give the rules first or the examples first? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of rules to examples. But what about guided discovery? Examples to rules. What about TTT? It's high in which form? Explanation or guided discovery? So it's the highest here. But then it is reduced in guided discovery. And then it is reduced more in self-directed discovery. So it goes like, it keeps going down. And of course, obviously, it's high here because you're explaining, you're saying everything. Okay? Now, in terms of involving students, okay, in the clarification process, which technique would involve the students? Now, of course, guided discovery would involve the students a lot. And of course, you know, if something is, between guided discovery and self-directed, is very also good in that terms. But in explanation, you are just telling, okay? You're not eliciting, you're telling more than eliciting. So here we've got telling, and here we have eliciting. Okay, so now my friends, let's come to this task. I have here a client down there, or a scale. I've got a scale in here. And on this scale we have explanation, guided discovery, and self-directed discovery. Then I have here 10 situations from the English classroom. Think about each situation and write the number in the correct position on the scale, like what I did here. I'll do the first one with you. You give students a worksheet with example sentences using the present perfect. The worksheet includes a series of questions that guide students to figure out the rules for form and meaning. Is it a complete self-directed discovery, or is it something in here? Yeah, it's something in this area. It's something between guided discovery towards self-directed discovery. Why? Because the way it is designed, we said what? Includes a series of questions. But these questions would guide the students to figure out the rules. Okay, so students are not left completely on their own. I'm not giving them a reference to read. I'm giving them questions, and as long as there are questions, there will be feedback from the teacher, so that sort of stuff. So do the same to the rest. You want to ask, Suhaila? Yeah. The answer is right, number 1 here. Yeah. It's between. Oh yeah. I mean, just, you know, it needs to go here. So it's like between guided discovery and self-directed discovery. Or we did the first one. The second one, you present the rules for comparatives and superlatives on a board, explain the difference between them, and give several examples while the class listens and takes notes. Very good.
You do everything.
Exactly. 3, students decide they want to improve their use of relative clauses. They search YouTube and grammar websites at home, then make a poster to present their findings in the next class. Yeah, that's the maximum one, right? Yeah. Okay. The end of the scale. You show students a series of modal verbs in context from a short reading passage, then ask, what do these words tell us about certainty or possibility, and help students formulate a rule. Very good. You tell a story about your childhood using the past continuous. You write key verbs on a board and explain that you use this tense to describe ongoing actions in the past. Yeah, of course, explanations. You assign students a task to find 10 examples of the passive voice in a text. They then answer questions guiding them to notice the structure and hypothesize a rule. Yeah, it's come between guided discovery and self-directed. It's okay. You explain the third conditional using a timeline and substitution table while the students listen, then drill some examples chorally. Very good. You assign an online learning module about reported speech. Students read the explanations, watch videos, and complete the quizzes independently. Of course. Now, students work in groups to unscramble jumbled present perfect questions, discuss the pattern they see, and then create their own examples. You monitor and help only when necessary. Yeah, so it's between. Look, your teaching will always, fall on a scale like that. Sometimes you are exactly using guided discovery. Sometimes, you move a bit towards self-directed. It's not exactly, you're not giving the students everything to do on their own. You're designing questions, okay, like the examples I gave you, right? But again, I mean, the best thing to say is it closer to guided discovery or closer to self-directed? This is, yeah. And sometimes things can be between and guided discovery. So there are also areas that can be here. No. You clarify the difference between will and going to by eliciting predictions from students based on pictures, asking them to explain their short choices and confirming the rules as needed. Of course, yeah. Right. So is it clear to you now? Right? Okay, wonderful. So let's wrap up. So how many techniques do we mainly have when we are clarifying language? 3 main techniques, let's say, which are explanation, guided discovery, self-directed discovery. Do we have some gray areas? Yeah, I mean, like you might use something that is not completely guided discovery, not completely self-directed, however, it's wonderful and it's correct. Okay, so it goes like that. Any questions? Yeah. For number 5, you tell a story about your childhood using the past continuous. You write key verbs on the board and explain that you use this tense to describe ongoing actions in the past. Do students say something? Do you elicit from students? Then you did everything yourself. Now, what if you are telling a story so that the students listen to the story, answer some questions, and then based on this story, you start eliciting, okay, things related to the verbs in past simple. That would be?
But we started by examples to...
You started by a text. Okay? Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe you might put it a bit here, okay, because it's not, that kind of direct explanation like that. But still, as long as the students are doing nothing, you're doing everything. It's just the closest to explanation, right? Other questions? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So take a break and then you have a question? No? And we'll continue. Enjoy your break. So my friends, right, as you saw, it was an input session about, you know, the difference between explanation, guided discovery, self-directed discovery, and the scale and all that stuff. And as you saw in the input session, when I actually delivered those 4 quick demos, that was kind of the practical aspect. And when, you know, trainees started, you know, talking about these different techniques, you know, and which one is their favorite and why and all that stuff, that was the personal aspect. And when I started talking about, you know, the difference between these techniques and how each one works and the scale, that was the professional aspect. And this is, you know, my friends, how every input session should be designed. I don't mean like this one, I mean like these should cover the 3 Ps. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Ways of Teacher Training. Thank you so much. Until we meet again, this was Shadi Abu Yusuf. Bye-bye.